coming, and we're happy to host. I hope everyone's had fun, and there's so much more to come. This is going to be a really long day. Really long day. I don't think this ends till 7:30, and we're going to have booze and food later on, so please stick around. I don't have the bios for my co-panelists, so maybe what we'll do is, if each of you just introduce yourself, maybe a minute, something like that, so we can get to the good stuff, that'd be great.
Yes, my name is Jay Park, and co-founder, CEO of Catalyx Exchange, based here in Alberta. We've been operating for 3.5 years, and love to be in this province because I believe that's very forward-thinking and welcoming for crypto-based businesses. And nice to meet you all.
I'm Mohammed. I'm a legal counsel and Fintech advisor for the Alberta Securities Commission. I am a member of the newly formed Advanced Knowledge and Research Division at the Asst, where we focus primarily on emerging issues as relating to Fintech, crypto, blockchain, AI, any sort of emerging issues.
I'm Tanim Rasool, Chief Operating Officer at Index, one of Canada's leading cryptocurrency trading platforms, incorporated here in Alberta in 2017. And I'm going to try to watch what I say because I have the Alberta Securities Commission beside me. So.
Mohammed,
I'm not
he's a friendly regulator. And this is what I was going to say. I'm really excited about the panel, our panel today, because we've got a mix of industry and a regulator, and it's not very often where we have a member of the regulator and industry on the same panel, so it's great. And I've known Mohammed for a number of years. He's a great guy, so we can be free to say whatever we want, talk freely. Just don't bash the AST, maybe. Okay, so the first question is, digital assets might be the subject of contentious regulatory debate in the US. We know that. But the market is still growing rapidly, with major TradFi firms like JP Morgan announcing they intend to tokenize trillions of dollars of conventional equities. I guess BlackRock and the spot ETF offerings is included in that latest run. Where do you see Alberta's biggest opportunities in this space? And anyone who wants to start can just go ahead.
Sure, I can jump in. Well, I think institutions like JP Morgan and BlackRock. I mean, I think we're already leading the space as it relates to ETFs, because we've had Bitcoin and Ether ETFs in Canada for a couple of years now.
I'm going to be interrupting. I hope not too much, but today the CSA released a staff notice 81336 about crypto investment funds, and some policy. And they mentioned that as of, I think it was April 30th, there are 22 public crypto investment funds, public companies in Canada, 22 of them, I didn't realize that, collectively holding over $2.5 billion in net assets. So it's a pretty big market.
It is, yeah, and I think that's a great example of that, sort of industry leading the way. I mean, as many of you are probably aware, QIQ led that charge and found that it was in the public interest to have this Bitcoin ETF. JP Morgan is some of the challenges ahead are that JP Morgan is a bank, and so and they're prudentially regulated, and so a little different than some of the financial institutions here that are in the crypto space. As it stands, we don't have any Canadian banks that have even tried to dip their toes into the space. But I think there's a lot of exciting times ahead as it relates to sort of the tokenization of assets. And I've been pretty vocal in the past about those are sort of the exciting things that are yet to happen, sort of bridging the gap between that sort of the real world and sort of the digital world and building that bridge. It's tough, it's a big challenge, but I think those are some of the exciting things that are yet to come, for sure.
Just a note, Concentra Bank and Concentra Trust a few years ago worked with one of our clients to assist our client to issue its Canadian dollar anchored stablecoin. And I think it was the first financial institution in Canada to form such a partnership. We might talk about this later on, but I really think that financial institutions are going to start issuing their own stable coins in the next few years, tokenized deposits, so-called liability stable coins, where it's a fiat anchored stable coin and it's really backed by the reputation and trust in the financial institution. So I do think that's coming down the road. But yeah, so do you want to take a stab at the question?
Well, I mean, from my point of view, the technology allows everyone to have control over their own financial like assets and investing that wasn't available for the layman, which I found very refreshing, and also it feels good to be able to hold that asset and to be able to send that asset wherever you want. And so the technology is proven. It's just I feel that how do we marry that with traditional institutions and buying habits that we've all known, which is banking. And so I think with only about 5% of Canadians holding or being introduced to crypto assets, I mean, it's just going to be growing every single year. And to be able to be positioned as one of the pioneers, maybe doing a lot of the heavy lifting, it is going to be very rewarding, I believe.
No, I agree. I don't think the industry is going anywhere. I know it arguably slowed down the last few years. There was more investment, I think, diverted to AI. I just have seen a steady flow of work personally, more companies coming into Canada, more companies coming online in mining, crypto ATM companies. So I don't think the industry is going anywhere, and yeah, I don't think it's dying.
Matt, I wanted to touch a little bit on the tokenization of real world assets a little bit. We've been talking today about reducing red tape and reducing some of the regulatory burdens that organizations have here. And I can tell you, NDAX had looked into tokenizing real world assets 3.5 years ago, and it's something we actually have to put on the shelf because it coming through as a new Canadian cryptocurrency trading platform, getting that regulatory side, getting those T's and C's all completed, and also at the same time trying to do this new innovative tokenization of real world assets, it was next to impossible. And so what I'd like now is for some of the officials in the Alberta government to help look at the real world tokenization, because I think this is a massive opportunity, and that's why they're pushing for it in the United States.
Yeah, to that point, so I've counseled clients, like I act for a client right now that's in the process of tokenizing land, and I'll just speak briefly on this. It's, to date, each province and territory has its own real property act, real property legislation. There is a real property registry in virtually every province and territory. Those are provincially run. They're not connected to a blockchain. So if you're going to tokenize real property, you have to generally form a legal entity, buy the land, and then issue equity securities of the legal entity to investors in tokens, in the form of tokens. Everyone agrees those are securities. The legal entity finds a dealer with the appropriate license to sell those tokens, those securities. So that's the way I think that I've seen it done with land. And you can use a limited partnership. It's a flow-through entity. It's a very tax-efficient way to raise money and often used in real estate offerings. So, despite the fact that no public land title registry is connected to a blockchain, you can still tokenize, and the buyer gets an indirect interest in something that's solely invested in holding land.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of fundamental to what we start to see is kind of what we're looking for is not trying to make it fit into what's the system is now, but bringing new sort of, and Mohammed knows this best, we've been working with the regulators for years, and I think what we've come through for the Canadian CTP side is a very balanced approach where both the industry and the regulators were able to come to an agreement, and that's what I'd like to see, not trying to fit us into what's already there, but to create new legislation that fits this new technology.
I'm all for that. I used to think years ago, countries that had their own like crypto legislation were largely like island nations. They were trying to promote tourism, business development. I actually see a lot of value now in having prudential regulation just for cryptocurrency and blockchain. I actually think now it's needed, because if we try to apply existing rules to new technologies like stablecoins, we see these inconsistencies, and it's very difficult in practice to apply existing regulations. And companies in the US have been saying this for years. The SEC says just fill out the form, just comply with the existing rules. It's like you literally can't fill out the form. It's impossible for an S1 prospectus. The information that's being asked, you can't provide because of the nature of the entity in the industry. So, okay, moving to the next question. Okay, so what are the key services and regulatory conditions which make up a strong digital asset hub? What can Alberta learn from the success of leading blockchain regions like Europe, the UAE, and the UK? Whoever.
Sure, yeah, I can move in. Well, I think like the key services part is an important one. It's not entirely clear, especially in a jurisdiction like Canada or some of the G7 countries with a stable banking system, of why blockchain. I want to preface this first that I'm a crypto enthusiast. Also, I forgot my disclaimer, but I'm a lawyer, so don't take anything I say as legal advice, nor is it the view of the ASC.
You're not speaking for the whole ASC?
No, I'm not.
I wish you could, actually.
But that being said, I think what time will tell, and sort of the key driver to that is sort of the use cases of blockchain. If you go inside and canvass a mall of 100 people, it's not and ask them, what blockchain is. It's not entirely clear any of them would know, and those who do would probably think crypto trading, as opposed to real practical use cases that will affect people's lives. For example, we were just talking about the tokenization of real world assets and making things a lot more faster, efficient, and cheaper. So I think devs and promoters need to really think about what those use cases are, and I think that's a key driver into creating sort of a digital asset hub, if you will. I don't know if you know this, but we're working very hard to make Alberta the crypto hub. We want that to happen, but it is not. I think the key driver is industry and driving those use cases and bringing real practical applications to consumers.
Proving the use cases. So let's talk about why would you tokenize real estate? The idea is to take an traditionally illiquid market and try to make it a little more liquid. So open up. Alberta, we have ranch land, farmland. I know I've had clients who I've worked with in the past who have tried to open that market up to smaller investors, so you can bring in more investors, bring in more capital. You can make supply chains more efficient with blockchain. There are other uses and reasons to tokenize. The carbon credit trading market, that's what I was thinking of. So that's an example of something that would be much more efficient and transparent and might help to legitimize the carbon credit trading industry if we tokenize carbon credits and have them trading on a transparent blockchain that everyone can see 24/7. So I think those are some of the use cases that I've seen in my practice and reasons why people would want to tokenize.
And there's also been, the question asked about Europe and UAE and other, foreign jurisdictions, and the UK's recently passed Financial Services and Markets Act, and obviously the EU has passed some really comprehensive legislation in MiCA. And I think those are good steps forward. We have unique challenges here in Canada, whereas in the UK the FCA is a unified regulator, and so it makes things a little bit different or a little bit easier for them to regulate the sector. I think they've done some great things with stablecoins, for example, and those are sort of top of mind. As much as I can say, those are sort of top of mind for all regulators, not just the securities regulators, but also the Bank of Canada, Asst, and others. So I think there's headway being made. I mean, we've done what we can using existing rules and legislation that at our disposal. But I think there's still lots of work to be done.
Yeah.
I just speaking for industry, I think whenever you're looking to enter a new market or a new region, it's just all about mitigating risk. And I think when you have legislation in place, like you see with MiCA and what's happening across the globe, especially in Dubai and Hong Kong, it takes the risk away from an organization like ourselves to set up shop. And so I think for Alberta, they got to continue to make sure there's easy to understand legislation that will attract top industry and top organizations and talent to set up headquarters here. Because I think being here since 2017, Index was created in Alberta, and we've watched so many different crypto organizations get attracted to this province. I think we do have the potential to be really the number one global hub when it comes to cryptocurrency around and digital assets around the globe.
Here's my wish list for things that would make Alberta a hub, crypto hub. Sandboxes. So the regulatory sandboxes are extremely important. A number of jurisdictions, UAE has a sandbox program. Switzerland's Crypto Valley, so having a hub with the support of higher education, universities, and the government, that helps tax incentives and financial incentives. I think if the provincial government was open to talking about providing some type of relief, potentially, or credit to the industry, that would, I'm sure, attract business here. And then I've got public and private partnerships. So some of these we're kind of doing already. Like Mohammed, we've had a sandbox, at least at the CSA level, for a while, right? And we would have one in
it's recently changed. So it's the innovation. There's been relabeled the innovation hub, and so I don't know if there's been a release for it yet, so I won't dive into it a lot. But I mean, I think sandboxes are a great thing. I mean, we do have the Financial Innovation Act here in Alberta. I'm not sure if any companies have been admitted to it yet, but I think that's a great step forward.
Yeah. So those
hopefully somebody does get admitted sooner or later.
Right? I don't think anyone's
That'd be
being.
nice.
Yeah.
To those who don't know it, the it's Financial Services Innovation Act or Financial Innovation Act. It was a piece of legislation that exempts certain companies from the application of certain laws, like consumer protection law, the Financial Trust and Loan Company Act. You can get relief from that. So I think it's a very specific type of business that would apply and get relief. I think maybe we need a more broader, more inclusive type of regulation where we could trial and test run different products and services.
The biggest issue with that one was it had to be a new product on the market, and before staking was regulated, that was one of the ones they tried to put through, but because staking has been out for so many years, it didn't count. So there's no net new products. They mainly have to go through the Securities Commission now, so it wasn't very well put together, unfortunately.
Well, I've covered everything in terms of, but most important to attract global blockchain / crypto industry leaders to Alberta, Calgary is clarity in policies, because just like if you look at how the U.S. handled their regulatory, it was all over the map, and I know firsthand of crypto exchanges spending upwards of $50 million a year in legal fees because there were.
That's outrageous.
It was
Never want that. Craig, no, never.
Because everything was
The
a
wrong
moving
business.
target, right? And so the more clarity in terms of policy and regulatory, it will attract global projects because it de-risks a lot of the unknown. And I want to share, I think, a really cool application to crypto in the real world that's operating right now. Catalyx is very proud to be partnering up with the largest metaverse/crypto game in the world, called Coin Hunt World, and approximately 25,000 users across Canada and growing by the thousands per month. So what it is a version of Pokemon Go. So there's actually like a geographic metaverse that you can discover with your phone, and you interact with different monuments and businesses to be able to answer trivia questions. In return, you can gather keys and earn crypto. And how this is a new form of advertising and marketing for companies and firms to engage with their brand. And so we're very excited to be able to support the Canadian users of this game because full-time gamers or users are actually earning hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month interacting with these different geographic areas.
Is it, so how do you see it as an advertising avenue or way to advertise?
For example, if you're Starbucks, and then every single physical Starbucks, you have to walk with your phone, and you would unlock a trivia question in regards. You could have something about the brand, or you have to look up a certain drink and how much it is and enter it into the trivia question. And by correctly answering these questions, you've interacted with a brand, you've interacted with a physical location, therefore you're more likely to spend money there. So it's a lot of different companies, clothing companies, different brands in terms of like physical goods or services could do the same. And it just really unlocks a very, very powerful, engaging experience where the user is benefiting because they're earning crypto, and the brand is benefiting because they're getting engagement and people physically moving to the locations. And the company, Coin Hunt World and Catalyx, is benefiting because we're taking a cut of all the transactions.
You know, it's interesting because that kind of ties, so thanks for sharing, Jay. It ties into our third question. Do we have time to? Okay, so 5 minutes, and this is probably the most important question that I saved for last. Unfortunately, we're gonna run out of time, I think so. But globally, the most successful digital asset hubs are the ones where political leadership believes that blockchain is an integral part of the future economy. What vision would you share with Alberta's political leadership, some of whom are here today, about why we need policies that support the digital economy? Why don't I start at the other end of the table?
Yeah, it's clear. Attracting top organizations to have their headquarters here creates jobs, creates tax-based revenue, and it's just good for the overall economy and helps diversify Alberta's economy. And I think all those three things, I think any politician would agree with. And we've got a chance here because we've had a little bit of a head start, and now we've got to compete with some of the other regions to make Alberta the innovative crypto hub of the world.
I completely agree. I think there's so much potential in Alberta. And the benefits, like Mohammed, you talked about, what are the practical benefits and why are people using cryptocurrency and tokenizing real world assets. We mentioned a few. I would say job creation. Why do we want this industry, especially Bitcoin mining, economic diversification? Can you share?
Sure,
some
yeah.
other
Like, I
benefits?
mean, I don't think I'll comment or nudge on what I think, or find appropriate to comment on what I think Alberta leadership should do. But I think some of the challenges that sort of arise in the digital economy is, some of these entities are performing the activities of, in the traditional finance, of multiple counterparties, clearing, settlement, custody, spot trading, future, and so and they're all collapsed onto one entity now. So it creates a whole set of sort of unique challenges and issues from a regulatory standpoint, from a legal standpoint, and so I think those are all sort of issues that we're sort of trying to work through using the current tools that we have. And I think it's becoming, increasingly more clear that there might be a legislative solution or recommendation required. I've been vocal in the past about some of those particular issues. But I think those are some of the challenges, the big ones that are sort of right in front of us that should or need to be sort of flushed out a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my vision?
Of course, that's why I'm here.
Okay, our vision for Alberta is a diversified and dynamic economy that harnesses the power of technology. With the right policies in place, blockchain can become a new pillar of economic growth alongside our traditional strengths in oil and gas. Anyway, I think it's all about diversification. We've got a lot of interest in Alberta already. I've got clients from other countries that are making Calgary their head office. They're locating to Alberta specifically because of some of the points Minister Nally made at the beginning, the low corporate tax rate and other benefits. Quality customer base, I've heard. So for industry here, I've heard that Canada and Alberta in particular have really high quality customer base, talented workforce. We've got support from the universities. We've got blockchain and Fintech courses that are taught at the University of Calgary and University of Alberta in Edmonton. So I think we've got a lot of things in our favor. Jay, is there anything that you want to add before we wrap up?
There's a lot of moving parts here, and to sort of circle it back to the purpose of this event, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining sort of exists in a silo. It doesn't really fit generally really anywhere, and it's an integral piece. And we have sort of different regulators and different jurisdictional perimeters where some of these issues are sort of sitting overlapped, right? Sort of like a Venn diagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
The overlap, and that's what's sort of the novel, interesting part about this space. And so I think sort of working through that, as you mentioned, will help sort of create a better, more unified digital.
Yeah, I think we don't realize in Alberta how important the Bitcoin mining industry is in Alberta and Canada, how we can deal with energy in an efficient manner, excess energy, the jobs, the technology. I think part of the problem is a lot of people still don't understand Bitcoin fundamentally. And
There's
but
a very
I think
big-
that's changing.
Yeah, there's a very big educational component that's missing, even for the workforce. And currently right now, SAIT is working on, which I think is amazing, but SAIT is working on a new major for their BA program, which is in financial innovation, which I'm assisting in helping develop the curriculum for, which should roll out in 2024. But there's a significant piece to sort of blockchain, Bitcoin. There will be elements of how that fits into securities regulation, banking regulation. And so these people or these students that when they come out will have sort of be able to hit the ground running in this sort of new space, this new fintech space, which I think will be in a vastly different era in the next couple of years, right?
Yeah. I think we're pretty much out of time. Clay, is that right? Or okay. Do you want to just 1 minute, last words, okay?
Well, I mean, I think,
What's your vision?
I don't know what my vision is, but in terms of, I think Alberta is in a unique position because it's so heavily relied upon oil and gas in the past. And that's been exposed when global prices or global oil prices happens, and we see what the local economy does when that happens, when you rely too much on an industry. And so therefore, I believe Albertans are more open to seeing, hey, what can we do to adopt to get ahead? Whereas if you're in a different part of the country, you might not have been exposed to that in the past.
You're not as motivated.
You're not as hungry, and you don't see the opportunity. And I guess if we do not regulate, if we do not adopt, then we have the chance of becoming blockbuster.
Yeah, I think we are. The government is listening. The fact that we had this lunch with the premier, I mean, that all of Minister Nally, it's just all of the chips are lining up, and I really think the next few years are going to be exciting. We're going to see more government support, both federally and provincially, for the industry. And I think that's it. Thanks, Clea, and thanks to my panelists. And hope you enjoy the rest of the day.